please help find my daughter. I don't know if my daughter's being fed, taken care of, if she's still alive, if she's getting any sleep.
In February 2012, Samantha Koenig vanished while working her late-night shift at a small coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. What seemed at first like a simple disappearance quickly turned into a terrifying case of abduction and murder. A chilling ransom note and a string of ATM withdrawals painted a grim picture. But it was only the beginning of a twisted trail that led investigators to one of the most cold-blooded killers in modern history. How did Samantha's disappearance expose the horrifying double life of Israel Keyes? Let's get into the disturbing details of this tragic case.
You know, it's unfortunate that it had to happen.
Yeah, him ending his life pretty much gave himself relief from actually serving his sentence and like going through the justice system for paying for the crime.
Samantha Koenig, an 18-year-old barista from Anchorage, Alaska, had a reputation for being warm and welcoming to everyone who walked into the Common Grounds coffee stand on Tudor Road. Her bubbly personality and infectious smile made her a favorite among customers. People often remarked on how kind-hearted and genuine she was, always taking the time to listen and connect with others. She wasn't just a barista, she was someone who brought joy to everyone around her.
She seemed like she had a very good spirit, like she was a very kind individual, caring about others. You could tell that she had a lot of friends that cared about her a lot.
Samantha had big dreams for her future. Despite her young age, she was determined to make something of herself. She had ambitions of pursuing a career in the arts, and she had been saving up money to eventually enroll in college. Samantha had a creative soul and wanted to explore her passion for photography and design. She often talked about traveling the world, capturing moments through her camera lens, and experiencing new cultures. Her enthusiasm for life and her dreams for the future gave those around her the impression that she was a young woman on the verge of something great. But little did she know that her life would tragically be cut short before she could fully realize her aspirations. On the evening of February 1st, 2012, Israel Keyes executed his meticulously planned abduction. He arrived at the Common Grounds coffee stand just before closing time, wearing a ski mask and ordering a coffee from Samantha Koenig. As she handed him the drink, he pulled out a gun, demanding money. After taking what cash he could, he forced his way into the stand and tied Samantha's hands with zip ties. Keyes then inquired about her car, but Samantha told him she didn't have one. Undiscouraged, he marched her out of the coffee stand toward Tudor Road.
Right through the window?
Right through the window.
Have you ever seen something like that before?
No. And then you see two individuals walk away. It looks like an abduction.
Samantha, terrified yet determined, attempted to flee, but Keyes quickly chased her down. He tackled her to the ground, placing one arm around her and aiming his gun at her, threatening to kill her if she didn't cooperate. At this point, Keyes demonstrated the cold control he had over the situation, telling her that the gun was loaded with quiet ammunition to prevent anyone from hearing her scream. They crossed Tudor Road, and Keyes led her to his modified truck, a vehicle he had carefully prepared by removing its toolboxes and license plates to make it harder to trace. Keyes then bound her inside the truck, driving away with her into the night. At that moment, Samantha's nightmare was just beginning, and her every attempt to resist was only make her situation worse.
So Samantha's over at the window here. She handed something to the customer. She backs up, and this is where you see Samantha do this. You see her raise her arms.
When you raise your hands like that, it's usually because somebody's doing
Something, exactly.
As they drove through the streets of Anchorage, the headlights from Keyes' truck illuminated the otherwise quiet roads. Keyes tried to reassure Samantha, his voice calm and measured, as he explained that the situation was merely a kidnapping for ransom. He claimed that if she cooperated, she would be released unharmed. Although terrified, Samantha's courage did not waver. She knew the dangers she faced, but instead of succumbing to fear, she attempted to humanize herself. With quiet determination, she engaged him in conversation, hoping that her words might somehow sway his actions and convince him to let her go.
Do you think her assailant said turn off the lights?
Yes. At this point, you see an individual jump in through the window.
Right through the window?
Right through the window.
Have you ever seen something like that before?
No.
Despite his calm demeanor, Keyes was not entirely focused on the conversation. His mind was consumed with the next steps of his twisted plan. However, he soon realized that a crucial part of his strategy had gone missing: Samantha's cell phone. Without it, he could not send a ransom demand, nor could he make it appear as if she had simply gone off on her own. The realization hit him hard, and in frustration, he abruptly turned the truck around.
And then you see two individuals walk away. It looks like an abduction.
He drove back to the coffee stand where he had taken Samantha, his mind racing. Once there, he left her bound in the truck like a silent prisoner in the dark. Inside the stand, he quickly retrieved Samantha's phone and returned to the truck, his footsteps echoing in the empty lot. He then drove to a different part of town, where he composed 2 text messages, one to Samantha's boyfriend, the other to her employer. In the messages, he made it seem as though Samantha had simply had a rough day and was leaving town for the weekend, hoping to buy himself some time before the authorities caught on.
With the help of the reward money that was generously donated by members of this community, the Koenig family was able to place money into the account.
Once the messages were sent, Keyes took the final step in ensuring Samantha's phone would not be used to trace her. He removed the phone's battery and disabled it completely. With his dark plan still in motion, he continued driving, the night swallowing them whole. Keyes then asked Samantha for her debit card, to which she explained that it was in her boyfriend's truck, parked at her house. She also provided him with the PIN. After hearing this, Keyes drove Samantha to his own home and placed her in a shed outside his residence. He bound her with restraints, cranked up the radio to drown out any sounds of struggle, and warned her that if she screamed, he would be able to hear it using his police scanner. Samantha had no choice but to comply, knowing that any attempt to alert the neighbors would lead to dire consequences. When Samantha gave him the ATM card, he quickly fled the scene, rushing back to his truck. He drove straight to an ATM where he tested the PIN Samantha had provided. When the code worked, confirming his access to her bank account, he returned to his home, likely feeling a twisted sense of success. But what happened next would only intensify the horror. Inside his house, Keyes subjected Samantha to unimaginable cruelty. He sexually assaulted her and then ended her life by asphyxiation, strangling her to ensure she could not survive. After killing her, he left her lifeless body in the shed and went back into his home to prepare for a pre-planned cruise. With cold detachment, Keyes packed his belongings, seemingly unbothered by the brutal crime he had just committed. On the morning of February 2nd, he left Anchorage, heading out on his trip to New Orleans, leaving Samantha's body behind. Her family, unaware of the darkness that had happened, would soon be drawn into a nightmare from which they would never recover. On February 17th, 2012, Israel Keyes returned to Anchorage, a place now fraught with grief and confusion following the disappearance of Samantha Koenig. By this point, the case had gained significant attention, with her family and the community tirelessly searching for answers. Despite the heightened awareness, Keyes continued with his chilling plan, determined to carry out the ransom portion of his plot.
The indictment alleges that Israel Keyes abducted Samantha Koenig from the Common Grounds coffee stand on Tudor Road on February 1st, 2012, and that he took her against her will to his white pickup truck that was parked across the street.
He began by retrieving Samantha's lifeless body from the shed where he had left her, taking care to position it in such a way that it would appear she was still alive. Keyes used a Polaroid camera to take a disturbing photo of Samantha, making sure her eyes were closed. He also ensured that a copy of the Anchorage Daily News, dated February 13, 2012, was clearly visible in the image. This was a deliberate attempt to create the illusion that Samantha was still being held captive, alive, and awaiting her release.
Sewed her eyes open with fishing line and photographed her with a recent newspaper. He then included the photo with a ransom note to Samantha's family, telling them to deposit $30,000 into Samantha's bank account.
After staging the photo, Keyes wrote a ransom note demanding $30,000 to be deposited into the account linked to Samantha's ATM card. The note, a chilling reminder of the predator's control, was carefully left under a memorial flyer for a dog named Albert. It was placed at Connors Bog Park, a location chosen for its isolation.
That note contained a picture of Samantha and a long typed-out message that talked about putting $30,000 into Samantha's bank account.
To further the deception, Keyes used Samantha's phone to send a text to her boyfriend, directing him to the location of the ransom note. With hope still flickering, Samantha's family complied with the instructions, depositing the money into the account, and believed that it would lead to Samantha's safe return. However, unknown to them, the nightmare was far from over, and Keyes' sinister game of manipulation was just beginning to unravel.
Well, that is probably really good because they aren't very safe in those roadside places. So I think that's good, but yeah, I hope some good comes out of this.
After Israel Keyes abducted Samantha Koenig, he began using her ATM card to withdraw money, initially from machines in Anchorage. He then took the card with him as he traveled across the country, making withdrawals in various states, including Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. To avoid detection, Keyes took extra precautions. He wore masks and gloves, attempting to conceal his identity while using the card at numerous ATMs. Despite his efforts, investigators were closely monitoring the withdrawals and began to notice a disturbing pattern.
A man comes out, he gets in the vehicle, and he starts to drive away.
The trooper follows.
And once that vehicle exceeds the speed limit, he has his probable cause to pull that vehicle over.
Each withdrawal was followed by sightings of a white Ford Focus, a vehicle matching the description of Keyes' car. The FBI, along with the Texas Rangers, coordinated their efforts in tracking down the suspect, focusing on the locations tied to the ATM transactions. On March 13, 2012, Corporal Brian Henry of the Texas Highway Patrol spotted a white Ford Focus and decided to pull it over. When he approached the vehicle, he identified Israel Keyes as the driver. A search of the car revealed crucial evidence. Samantha's phone was found inside, and Keyes' wallet contained the ATM card he had been using. This discovery provided the necessary evidence to arrest Keyes, ending his reign of terror and marking a significant breakthrough in the investigation.
Now, all the shocker things and all those things are like freaking fingernail on a chalkboard. I'd just say
Under interrogation, Israel Keyes confessed to the brutal murder of Samantha Koenig, offering a chilling account of the crime. He detailed how he had meticulously planned the abduction, choosing the coffee stand as the perfect spot for his attack. Keyes spoke with cold precision, explaining how he had stalked Samantha and carefully prepared his truck for the kidnapping, including removing the license plates. His demeanor remained strangely calm as he recounted how he had tied her up, taken her to his home, and ultimately ended her life after subjecting her to further horrors.
You're gonna get a full on. This reminds me of like those late night infomercials that used to sell those machines that shock your abs and stuff. Oh, it's like that one. You had one? You bought one of them? No, Kimberly. Oh, okay. But I tried it once. You get ripped from it.
Keyes revealed that after killing Samantha, he had dismembered her body and driven out to Matanuska Lake. There, he cut a hole through the thick ice and discarded her remains into the frigid water. Despite the gruesome details, Keyes remained tight-lipped about other victims he had murdered across the United States. He confessed to multiple killings, but chose to withhold the names and maintained control over the information. Authorities eventually found Samantha's body in the lake, providing her grieving family with some closure. However, many questions about Keyes's other potential victims were still left unanswered.
Riding back and forth and hearing chainsaws, that's all I've been hearing until I came out and I just seen a bunch of people.
Israel Keyes was charged with Samantha Koenig's murder and was awaiting trial when he committed suicide in his jail cell on December 2, 2012. While his death denied the Koenig family the chance to see justice fully served, it also robbed investigators of the opportunity to learn more about his other crimes.
The headquarters in the search for Samantha Koenig has tonight become a makeshift memorial. You can see all the flowers that people have left behind in memory of Samantha as news of her death spreads across town tonight.
The case of Samantha Koenig stands as a stark reminder of the evil that can exist in the world. Yet, it also highlights the courage of a young woman who faced unimaginable terror and the determination of law enforcement officers who worked tirelessly to bring her killer to justice. Samantha's family continues to honor her memory, ensuring her light is not forgotten.